welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be tackling a really fun topic. This one is one that really confused me when I first started gardening, and actually even just going through the process of getting ready for this video, I learned a ton. So I'm really excited to share with you guys because I think it could be super helpful, especially going into our fall planting schedules. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that today. And this video is in collaboration with David from Real and Rooted. If you guys haven't heard of his channel yet, please go check it out. He started a couple of months ago and he puts out such awesome content. I'm so impressed with how well his channel is put together and laid out, and the content he's been putting out, especially as a new YouTuber like me. So I thought that he would be a great person to collab with on this video. So head over to his channel and give him a like and subscribe because he is awesome. He's put out some really cool stuff, and I know that you guys are going to enjoy. So definitely head over there and then let him know that I sent you. So today's video is going to be on planting or hardiness zones. Pretty much what planting or hardiness zones are distinctions that a couple of different companies and organizations have made that distinguish different areas of the continent that have different temperature ranges. So pretty much, you know, where I'm at, we have pretty distinctive seasons, but we do get really high heat because I live in the south. We do have a fall, we do have a winter, we do have a dormancy period, whereas somebody who's living in, say, Florida isn't going to have one. And so they created this to be able to distinguish areas so that gardeners could go to this map, take a look at where they're located, and then based on that map they could decide what they wanted to grow and when they wanted to grow it. So in this video I'm going to be covering a couple of different topics, a couple of different questions regarding hardiness zones, and David from Real and Rooted is going to be covering a couple as well, so that together the two videos will hopefully give you guys a really good, well-rounded, at least basic knowledge of what the hardiness zones are, what the planting zones are, and then how to use them. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's go ahead and get started with the first topic in my video. So the first topic I'm going to be addressing is how to use your zone to determine your planting time. So David is going to cover how to find your planting zone, so definitely check his video out if you guys are interested in how to find what zone you're in. But once you guys figured out what zone you're in, then you have to figure out when is my first frost and when is my last frost, because those two dates are really important in determining when you need to stop planting and then when you need to start planting. So for me, I'm in zone 6B, so because of that, my first frost date is going to be anywhere from October 10th to October 15th, somewhere around there. It's normally pretty steady, and that's when I get my first frost. And so if plants can't handle frost, oftentimes this is when plants are going to start going into dormancy and preparing themselves for winter. And then the last frost of the year is going to be anywhere from April 30th for me to May 18th. It's a really big range, and that just is because we have a lot of variation in the area that I'm in of when the last frost is of the year. If you guys remember, I planted a lot of petunias actually in this, it's kind of in the side or the corner of my garden, and I'll go ahead and link that video up here. And I planted that actually before our last frost, and so we got another frost, I think it was like around Mother's Day or something like that. We got a really hard frost this year, and it came through and I covered everything up and they survived. I was like, oh, I made it. I didn't do too much damage, but I will say that the petunias have not done well this year in that area. So, and I think that actually may have something to do with that. Maybe their root systems were a little bit damaged. They just didn't have the greatest start, so they haven't flourished as well as my petunias that are in the front garden that I planted way after our last frost date. So you're gonna go on Google and you're gonna type in zone 4 first and last frost date. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you the dates that you have that are pretty much the start and the end of your planting year. So you're going to get one that's the first frost of the year, which is like when you have to finish planting or when you have to make sure that your plants are done for that year essentially, which for me is October 10th. And then when your last frost of the year is, so that's the beginning of your planting year. And for me that's May 18th. So for you, it might be a little bit different, but just go on Google, write down these dates, and that will really help you. So my calendar starts on May 18th and ends October 10th, and all between is my gardening year. And so pretty much that gives me the ability to start planning what I want to plant and when I want to plant it. So now you know your last frost date and your first frost date. And so now you've got your garden year planned out and hopefully written down on a piece of paper. And how do you use those dates to be able to know when to start planting? So I feel like people make this super uber complicated, and it definitely can be. So you can definitely get really, really deep into the garden planning, but when you're first starting, the super and most easy way to do it is just to look at the back of your seed packet. Okay, to show you guys what I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and show you a seed packet. So right here I have some Swiss chard that I plan on planting this fall, and then I'm gonna go ahead and show you what it looks like on the back. So it says 60 days to harvest. These are the things that we're looking at right now. Obviously you wanna take into account full sun and all that. But it also says right here that you can plant it in February and May, and August and October for me. So you can see where my zone is right here around Virginia, West Virginia. And so that is what I'm looking at here. And then of course, if you're in a different zone, you can go by the different colors based on the zone map. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how I use this information to plan my garden planting. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how I do a planting schedule. Ignore my really bad handwriting. So my first frost is October 10th, right? And that is 65 days from now, okay? So right now it's August 6th when I'm filming this. So I have 65 days until my average first frost. It could be different. It could end up being August 15th. It could be, August 1st. You don't really know, but this is just your average and it gives us kind of a good place to start with. So if you guys have watched my fall seed or my sunflower seeding video, you guys know that I'm trying to grow some plants or some flowers for my best friend's wedding, and they include sunflowers. I have some nasturtiums here, some zinnias that I want to grow for her. And so these are not frost hardy, so all of these need to be planted before and harvested before October 10th. So for example, for the sunflower, this has 55 days to bloom, and so if I want to make sure that they have time to bloom and will continue to bloom, then I need to plant them by, at the very latest, August 15th, okay? So I could plant them now because they will sequentially bloom, but to make sure that I plant them by August 15th. So I'm going to write sunflowers here, and then I'm going to put by August 15th, right? So that's these. Then my nasturtiums, I need to plant these because they have 45 to 50 days to bloom. I need to plant these by August 19th, okay? Because they need to have enough time to be able to get to the point where they're blooming so that I can harvest them for her wedding date, which just so happens to be the same as my frost date, which I thought was pretty funny. So I'm gonna put nasturtiums. I'm looking at how to spell them. How bad is that? And then by August 19th. And then for my zinnias, these are 60 to 65 days to bloom. And so I need to plant these by August 9th. I don't know if you guys can see that because it's really smeared, but August 9th is the last chance that I have to plant these. So these need to get into the ground as soon as possible. It's August 6th right now. I probably should have put these in the ground already, but I've just been so busy. So I'm gonna go ahead and write these down. So zinnias by August 9th. So that's pretty much how you make a basic planting schedule, which is a really important part of your gardening plan. And you can use this also in the same way in the spring if you can determine when your last frost date is. So when the last frost of the year normally hits, which for me, as I've said previously, is around anywhere from April 30th to May 18th. Hey guys, I'm just editing this video and I went ahead and wanted to mention that something I didn't talk about in the video was that you can actually use the last frost of the year to determine when you need to start your seeds indoors so that they can have a certain amount of growing time and kind of speed up your bloom time. So essentially, like for example, if you get seeds from the supermarket and sometimes they'll say on the seed packets when to start them, like to start them indoors 4 weeks before your last frost. And then also, or if you just want to like speed up the bloom time, if you want to have flowers blooming a little bit earlier, then you can go ahead and you can start them indoors, 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. And then as soon as you have that last frost or that last frost date, then you can go ahead and you can plant those tender annuals or perennials once that last frost has passed. Then you can go ahead and plant those outside, and they will bloom a little bit earlier for you than if you direct seed them after the last frost. So I hope that all makes sense, but you can also use that date to start your seeds indoors. And I didn't mention that, so I just wanted to come and mention it now. And so if you figured that out, then pretty much you can use that to determine when you can start planting and then when that means you're going to start blooming. So now that you've figured out your planting schedule, you might think that you're good to go. You can go ahead and get things into the ground. But there are a couple more things that planting zones don't explain. They don't explain what type of soil quality you have, where the sun is coming, so which garden beds are getting partial or full sun, how high your temperatures get in the summer, because some plants just don't do well in super, super high heat. And it's funny, I have something that's a prime example of this. I realized that I planted out some banana, it's banana cream, I'm pretty sure. Banana cream Amazing Daisies by Proven Winners, and I planted them in full sun because it says full sun on the tag. But when I went back and I looked, it actually says that if you live in a region that gets high heat, they do better with afternoon sun. And so if I had been more, a little bit more thorough in my research of the plant before planting it, I would have realized that that's why my Amazing Daisies are wilting in the afternoon, because it's just getting too hot for them. So I would definitely encourage you to just take a look at your soil quality, determine if you have clay soil, what you need to do about that, determine if you have alkaline or if you have acidic soil, and pretty much that's just on your like pH scale, and you can determine that really easily by a pH testing kit you can get at any garden center. Another thing is how many rainy days that you normally get through the year, which you can also figure out through Google, and that's a really helpful statistic so that you can know how much that you're going to need to provide additionally, because that's another expense, and it's also another thing that you have to take into consideration to make sure your plants are getting enough water throughout the year. So pretty much what I would do if I were you guys is when you're first starting out, determine your first and last frost date, figure out where that is, start writing down when you need to plant your plants. Then what I would do is just write down a couple questions for you. What is the pH of my soil? Alkaline or acidic? Question mark. How much sun does the garden bed get? Question mark. Partial or full. And then how many rainy days do I get in an average year? Question mark. And then just Google those things. And so for that last question, you're just going to go ahead and Google that. For the other two, I would just go ahead and check with your local garden center, and you can definitely determine that. And then of course just watch your garden bed to see how much sun it gets throughout the day. And so pretty quickly and easily you can have a pretty good idea of the planting space that you're going to be planting in, how long you have to plant, when you need to plant, and then how much water and nutrients the soil is going to need before you start planting. The next thing we're going to talk about is, I know that some people are getting a little confused when they figure out what their zone is, but then they see that it has a little letter behind it, either an A or a B. Normally the zones are separated by 10 degrees per planting zone. So for example, zone 6 is 10 degrees warmer than zone 5, but the A and the B separate it further into two smaller zones. So the A is going to be a little bit colder than the B zone. So for me, I'm in zone 6B, so I'm 5 degrees warmer than zone 6A. So I hope that makes sense, but pretty much what it just means is it separates you guys further. It can be helpful to know your average temperature to a little bit more of a fine detail for some plants and for some regions. Now, if I've lost you here and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is too much information, this is too much to do, so I will say that we're giving tips on how to have the best success you can with your garden, but I will say that there's been a lot of learning and a lot of really good things that happen when you do things wrong in the garden. So go out, plant things, even if they don't thrive and do the most ideal that they possibly could. Don't be discouraged, because I know that this is an invaluable experience, and for me, I'm a hands-on learner. It's always been better for me to plant things and see how they do rather than read something online. And I know that maybe that's a hard knock way of doing things, but you have to know yourself and just how you learn the best. A little research can go a long way, but I definitely don't want you guys to feel like that's preventing you from doing what you need to do. So, you know, get out there, get your hands dirty, plant some stuff in the ground and see how it goes. If it doesn't do anything, it's no big deal. You have next year. There's always more time. And definitely don't let it stop you from gardening. So to finish out, I'm just gonna go ahead and share a couple of things that grow really well in my region in case you guys are in my region and you're interested of what might grow well in your garden. So if you're close to my zone or if you're in my zone, like I said, I'm zone 6, then these are some things that have really grown well for me in my personal experience. So the first one is daylilies. Daylilies grow really, really well in our area. In fact, they're one of the best flowering plants that you can get, in my opinion, because they require very little water. You see them on the roadside quite a bit, and they just bloom pretty consistently. So for us, that has always done really well, and I've always really loved those types of plants. I also am partial to them because they bloom around my birthday, which is in June. So for some reason, they've always had kind of a special place in my heart. The next one is hydrangeas. So hydrangeas do really well for us. We live here in the south where we get quite a bit of rain in the summer, and so as you guys probably are well aware, hydrangeas love moisture, so they do really, really well for us. I don't tend to see a lot of pests on them, so I haven't had a lot of issue with that, thankfully. So they've done really, really well for me, and I would highly recommend them because you just can't beat a beautiful, gorgeous, huge hydrangea bloom. You can't beat it. Another thing that grows really well are pretty much any type of wildflower, so like black-eyed Susans, cone flowers, different things like that grow really well in our really, really hot, high heat summers. Rudbeckia is another one. Zinnias grow really well for us. So any type of wildflower has done really well in my experience, and at least from what I've seen in other people's gardens in my area. So that's another really good one, and those are really good too. If you're looking for a low water garden, that's a really good option because you can let them dry out and they'll still continue to produce, and they actually in fact like dry soil, so they tend to do really well. But another thing that grows really, really well in my area is hostas. Hostas do great in our clay soil. They love the shade, but I see them everywhere in my zone and in my fellow gardeners' gardens. They're beautiful and lush, and they just give such a really fresh, cool look to the garden. So I highly recommend, if you have really hard clay soil and you're looking for something to fill a shady part of your garden, hostas will not fail you, and they're definitely really good ones to add in. Okay guys, so that is all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed and you learned a little bit, and definitely if you guys haven't already, check out David from Real and Rooted and check out his channel, give him a little bit of love, and otherwise if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!